Chapter 8, Panama City, Florida, June 1990. The road to Panama City led me right into the entrance of the city from the west, where many road motels are located on the right and left of the road, adjacent to the beautiful beaches which stretch along Route 98 east. It was already Friday night when I arrived in the city. The traffic of vacationing crowds in the city slowed traffic motion on the highway to an almost complete stop. Horns of cars and screaming youngsters all around gave me a feeling of landing on a dream country. Everywhere seemed to be in a state of celebration. The feeling of a resort city, in a typical Florida summer night, was vivid all around. I kept driving past the traffic jam. It took about 45 minutes to clear the jam, but soon I was driving on a steel bridge which ran above the bay, on the western part of the city. The fuel quantity gauge was already flat on zero. I had to stop soon before I get stuck in the middle of the road. I already ran out of money. It was a question of time, when was I simply going to be knocked out of the road? It was a pity to have such a marvelous transportation, but no money for fuel to run it. But I didn't complain. I was more than lucky until now, and reached Florida after all. Only a week ago I didn't even dream it was possible for me at all. Inside the city everything was quiet. It was already around 2 o'clock in the morning. The roads were empty and I was driving slowly, looking for a good spot to stop for the night. As I drove past a sharp curve along the road on Route 98 East, I came close to a park which was in the middle of the city. It was too dark to see, but it was adjacent to the seashore, and had a lot of high trees. The entrance to the park also allowed driving into it. I entered the park, and found a dark spot under a few large trees, right next to the white sand of the beach. I turned the engine off. The fuel gauge was pushing hard into the zero. There was no fuel to keep going from here. Either I abandon the van, and avoid the risk of questioning for its ownership papers by a police officer, or I keep it, and try to find some source of money for fuel. I decided to abandon the van. It was stolen. I arrived in Florida, my destination. There was no sense in taking any risk of getting caught with a stolen vehicle. I felt sad to have to do it. The van was my home and transportation for a long time and distance, throughout the North American continent, for the last 7 days. It was somewhat not right to simply abandon the van in the middle of the city. I had no choice. I had to do it in order to stay on the safe side. I took my chimidan bag, the blanket I found in the van, and fled off the place, leaving the van locked and the keys in my pocket. I started to walk back toward the west. It was past 2 o'clock in the morning. I was alone on the sidewalk, walking slowly. Soon I reached the steel bridge I had just crossed a few moments before, this time by foot. I crossed it, and was near a place which was full of activity at this time of the night. I looked for a quiet place to lay on the white sand of the seashore. I was surrounded by dozens of young people all around, who were enjoying the beautiful Florida summer night. It was not the right time or place to sleep. I sat down near a motel, and waited for the morning to come. I had a lot to think about. All the events of the last 2 months, going back to the crossing the border to Jordan. What an amazing outcome. I am in Florida. My soul yelled inside me. It was hard for me to accept the fact I was still alive. Alive. I couldn't keep thinking for too long, I was too tired and too excited, and all the noise around. Still, it was hard for me to believe I was in Florida after all. It seemed like a dream. The vivid memories of captivity in Jordan, where I hardly believed I will ever see the light of day. A few Israelis captured by an Arab country, never heard of or seen alive, for decades. There was a time, during the initial period of interrogations in Jordan, when I was sure I was going to be sent to Iran or Syria, as a diplomatic present, from the Jordanian government. Here I am in America. The memories and thoughts kept coming to me and reminding me that this was nothing short a miracle, a clear intervention by force majeure. I started to walk again. I went along the main road toward the city again. The sides of the road were covered with well-maintained green grass, and the sprinklers were turning in fast a pace, kept the grass wet and fresh. It was a typical Florida habit, to let the sprinklers run during nighttime, to save energy and water. I kept walking slowly along the road on the paved concrete walkway. To my right I could see the dark water of the bay. There was no shore at this part, only a concrete wave breaker which joined with the green grass strap, which ran along it. Here and there I could see through the darkness of night, the short concrete posts, which were used for mooring the boats along the pier. There were no boats now. Everything looked deserted. I kept walking slowly along the pier. I was thinking deeply as I walked. It was early in the morning already, but still, completely dark. I turned to the pier and found a quiet place to sit. I felt very fresh and all the exhaustion I had before, seemed like it never was. I sat on the edge of the pier with my legs hanging loose, and the dark bay water about 3 feet under. I looked at the calm dark water. Already, I was in deep thoughts. What was it that made my faith so bleak, that I had to go through this violent storm in my life?